I've delivered divorce papers to 17 houses on my route over the past 5 years. Never thought I'd be signing my own. Let me tell you something about being a mailman. People think it's simple work. You put letters in boxes, packages on porches, and call it a day. But you see things on a route. You notice patterns. Mrs. Castellano gets a letter from her sister in Florida every third Tuesday. The Hendersons subscribe to 3 different hunting magazines, but I've never seen them leave the house. And the young couple on Birchwood Lane gets divorce papers on a Wednesday, and by Friday, there's a moving truck in the driveway. You see everything, but you say nothing. That's the job. I just never thought I'd be the subject of someone else's observations. The Thursday that changed everything started like any other. Gray sky, coffee going cold in my cup holder, and a package for Grounds and Grinds that needed a signature. I pulled the mail truck up to the curb at 2:45 p.m., checked the manifest, and grabbed the box of specialty filters Gary had ordered. The front door was propped open with a brick, letting the October air cycle through the shop. Only 2 customers inside, an old guy with a newspaper and a college kid buried in her laptop. Gary wasn't behind the counter. Neither was Amber. My wife had worked at this coffee shop for 6 years. I knew her schedule better than my own. Thursday afternoons, she handled inventory in the back while the afternoon rush died down. I walked through the shop toward the storage room, package under my arm, and that's when I heard it. A laugh. Not just any laugh. The kind of laugh that doesn't belong in a storage room during work hours. Low and throaty, like she was sharing a secret with someone who had no business knowing it. I stopped. My boots went quiet on the tile floor. The back door was cracked open, leading to the alley where they kept the dumpsters. I could see shadows moving through the gap. I set the package down on a shelf of coffee bags and moved closer. What I saw through that door is burned into my brain like a brand on cattle. Amber, my Amber, the woman I'd been married to for 10 years, the mother of my son, pressed up against the brick wall next to the dumpster. And Vincent Drake, the coffee supplier with the sleeve tattoos and the smile that made me want to break teeth, had his hands on her hips and his mouth on hers like he owned her. Time didn't freeze. That's what people say in movies. Time froze. No. Time kept moving, and I watched every second of it. I watched her fingers curl into the back of his shirt. I watched him whisper something against her lips that made her smile. I watched 10 years of my life turn to ash in a dirty alley that smelled like garbage. I pushed the door open. The hinges screamed. They jumped apart like teenagers caught under the bleachers. Amber's lipstick was smeared across her chin. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes went wide with something that looked less like guilt and more like inconvenience. "Beans arrived," I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. And so did I. Vinny, that's what everyone called him, like he was some neighborhood character instead of the man sleeping with my wife, had the nerve to smirk. He actually smirked at me. Crossed his arms over his chest like I was the one interrupting something important. "Back off, mailman. This doesn't concern you." I closed the distance between us in 3 steps. I'm not a big guy, 5'10", 180. But I've been hauling mail bags and lifting packages for 14 years. My hands aren't soft. "Nathan." Amber stepped between us, palms up. "Nathan, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" I kept my eyes on Vinny. "His tongue down your throat? Your hands all over him? Please, explain that to me." Vinny's smirk faltered. Good. He should be scared. The back door banged open again and Gary Dawson came barreling out, apron flapping. 52 years old, bald as an egg, and sweating like he'd run a marathon. "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" He grabbed my shoulder. "Nathan, come on, not here, not like this." I shrugged him off, but I didn't swing. Part of me wanted to. God, part of me wanted to paint that alley with Vinny's blood. But Dylan's face flashed in my mind. My 8-year-old son, waiting at home for his dad to walk through the door. I couldn't be the bad guy. Not today. Not ever. I stepped back. Amber reached for me, and I flinched away like her touch would burn. "Pack your lies," I said. "We're done playing." I walked back through the shop, past the old man with the newspaper who suddenly couldn't make eye contact, past the college kid who'd stopped typing. I grabbed the package I'd left on the shelf, tossed it on the counter, and kept walking. Gary appeared from nowhere, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Nathan, Nathan, hold up a second. Don't." I didn't turn around. "Just don't." I pushed through the front door and felt the October air hit my face like a slap. My truck was parked at the curb, engine still idling because I'd only expected to be inside for 2 minutes. Quick signature, quick hello to my wife, back on the route. Quick. What a joke. I climbed into the driver's seat. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't get the key in the ignition. Then I remembered the engine was already running. I put my foot on the brake. Then I took it off. Then I put it on again. What was I supposed to do? Where was I supposed to go? I drove. 3 blocks, 4 blocks, 5. Then I pulled over next to the little park where Amber and I used to take Dylan on Sunday afternoons. There was a swing set that squeaked and a slide that was too hot in summer. Dylan would climb to the top and yell, "Watch me, Dad," every single time, like I wasn't already watching. I sat there, staring at the empty swings and tried to remember how to breathe. I made it 3 blocks before I had to pull over. Not to cry. I don't cry easy. Never have. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't grip the steering wheel. My vision kept tunneling. My heart was doing something between a sprint and a seizure. I sat in that mail truck for 11 minutes, staring at the dashboard, trying to remember how to breathe. Then I picked up my phone and called Ray Whitman. Ray had been on the mail route next to mine for 8 years. We'd shared lunch breaks, complaints about management, and enough beers to fill a swimming pool. He was the closest thing I had to a best friend. "Ray," my voice cracked. I cleared my throat. "I need you to meet me after shift." "What's wrong? You sound like hell." "I just caught Amber with another man." Silence. Then, "Don't go home. Come to my place. I'll have the whiskey ready." Ray's kitchen smelled like burnt toast and pine sol. His wife had left him 4 years ago. Different circumstances, no cheating involved, just 2 people who'd realized they were better off apart. He'd kept the house, learned to cook badly, and become the kind of guy who always had whiskey ready for emergencies. This qualified. He poured 3 fingers of Jim Beam into a coffee mug and slid it across the table to me. "Drink first, talk second." I drank. The whiskey burned going down, and for a second, it dulled the roaring in my skull. "Vinny Drake," I said. My voice sounded hollow. "The coffee supplier. I caught them in the alley behind the shop. He had his hands all over her." Ray's jaw tightened. He'd met Vinny once at some neighborhood thing Amber had dragged us to. Ray had called him a greasy little weasel before we'd even finished our first beer. "How long?" he asked. "I don't know. Long enough that she didn't look surprised when I caught her. Just annoyed, like I'd interrupted her lunch break." Ray refilled my mug. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking I want to burn her life to the ground. I want to take everything she cares about and reduce it to rubble. I want her to wake up every morning and remember what she threw away." "Okay." Ray sat back, folded his arms. He had that look he got when he was about to say something I didn't want to hear. "I get that. Believe me, I get that. But here's the thing. You want to win this? You want to come out the other side with your kid and your house and your sanity? You can't be the bad guy. I'm not the one who... I know you're not. But the courts don't care who threw the first punch. They care who threw the last one. You go back there and put Vinny in the hospital, you're the monster. You trash the house, you're unstable. You scream at Amber in front of Dylan, you're a bad father. That's how the system works, man. Fair or not." I stared into my whiskey. The ice had already melted, watering it down to nothing. So what am I supposed to do? Just take it? Smile and pretend my wife didn't spend God knows how long running around behind my back? No, you don't take anything. You document. Every text, every email, every weird charge on the credit card. You get a lawyer, a real one, not some guy from a billboard who does traffic tickets on the side. And when she tries to spin this into some story where you're the villain, you hit back with facts. Cold, hard, undeniable facts. I want to destroy her, Ray. He leaned forward, met my eyes. Then do it smart, not stupid. Stupid feels good for about 5 minutes and then it costs you everything. Smart takes longer, but it actually works. I thought about Dylan. 8 years old, brown eyes, gap-toothed smile. He had a soccer game on Saturday. He was expecting both his parents to be there, cheering from the sidelines, pretending everything was normal. I don't know how to do this, I said. I don't know how to any of this. You'll figure it out, and I'll help. Whatever you need, a place to crash, someone to vent to, help hiding a body. He almost smiled. Kidding about that last one, mostly. I came home at 9:47 p.m. The house looked the same as it always did. Porch light on, Dylan's bike leaning against the garage, the azalea bushes Amber had planted 3 years ago dying slowly along the walkway. Everything normal. Everything a lie. Amber was sitting at the kitchen table, eyes red, mascara streaked down her cheeks like she'd been practicing her apology in the mirror. She'd changed out of her work clothes into a sweater I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. Soft, comfortable, the kind of thing you wear when you want to remind someone of better times. Nice try. Nathan. She stood up so fast the chair nearly tipped over. Please, let me explain. Where's Dylan? At my mother's. I thought we could talk without. You thought wrong. I walked past her, grabbed the pillow and blanket from the hall closet. I'm sleeping in the basement. Don't come down. Nathan, it's not what you think. Vinny and I just... I turned around. She flinched. His tongue was in your mouth. His hands were on your body. You were pressed up against a dumpster like some teenager. What exactly am I supposed to think? It's not like that. It was just... I've been lonely, Nathan. You're always working, always exhausted. You come home and you barely look at me. I felt invisible. Vinny made you feel special. Vinny, with his fancy truck and his smooth talk and his stupid smile. That's what you traded our family for? It wasn't trading. I never meant for it to go this far. It just happened. Nothing just happens, Amber. You made choices. Every single day for however long this has been going on, you made choices. You chose to text him. You chose to meet him. You chose to lie to me, over and over and over again. She was crying now, real tears, or maybe just more performance. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. Counseling? I actually laughed. You want to sit in some therapist's office and talk about our feelings while I pretend I didn't catch you with another man's hands down your pants? That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk to me about fair? I stepped closer. She smelled like her usual perfume, mixed with something else. Something masculine. Something that didn't belong to me. You've been sneaking around for God knows how long, spending our money on hotel rooms, making me think I was going crazy every time I noticed something was off. And now you want to talk about fair? She reached for me, trying to take my hand, trying to close the distance between us. I stepped back like her touch would burn. We'll talk when I decide we'll talk, I said. Until then, stay away from me. I went to the basement. I didn't sleep. I lay on the old couch we'd bought when we first moved in, stared at the water stains on the ceiling, and let my mind run in circles. At some point around 2 a.m., I grabbed my phone and opened the banking app. Amber handled our budget. Always had. I trusted her with it because I was too tired after work to care about spreadsheets. I scrolled through the transactions. The past year was littered with $200, $400 withdrawals labeled miscellaneous. Every 2 weeks, sometimes more. I did the math in my head. Rough, but close enough. Over $5,000. Gone. To what? I knew the answer before I finished asking the question. She'd been funding hotel rooms with our savings, our son's college fund. Every time I'd picked up an extra route, every time I'd worked through lunch to save a few bucks, she'd been spending it on him. I texted Ray at 3:14 a.m. I need a lawyer, a shark. His response came at 6:02 a.m. Patrick Webb. He handled my cousin's divorce. Guy's a pit bull. I'll send you his number. Let me tell you about the woman I thought I married. We met 12 years ago. I was 24, fresh out of postal training, still learning my route. She was 22, working the counter at Grounds and Grinds, with a smile that could stop traffic and a laugh that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. First day I walked in there, she wrote her number on my coffee cup. 7 digits in blue Sharpie, followed by a smiley face. I still remember looking at it, thinking there must be some mistake. Girls like her didn't give their numbers to guys like me, but she did. And when I called her that night, she laughed and said she'd been hoping I would. 6 months of coffee dates and evening walks, dinners at places I couldn't quite afford but didn't care because seeing her face across the table was worth every penny. She told me her dreams, owning her own cafe someday, building something that was hers. I told her mine, simpler stuff mostly, a house, a family, someone to come home to. Her mother didn't approve. A mailman? I overheard her say once when Amber didn't know I was listening. You could do so much better. You could aim higher. But Amber defended me. He's steady, she said. He's real. He shows up. That's worth more than ambition. I fell in love with her all over again right then. 2 years later, I proposed at the covered bridge outside town, our spot, the place where we'd had our first real kiss. I'd saved for 6 months for the ring. It wasn't much, quarter carat, silver band. But she cried when she saw it. Yes, she said. 1,000 times, yes. We got married that fall. Small ceremony, tight budget. Her sister Denise gave a toast about forever that made everyone tear up. I made a vow that night, standing in front of everyone we loved. I'll walk every mile for you. She promised she'd never give me a reason to doubt her. Funny how promises work out sometimes. Patrick Webb's office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a dry cleaner. Not impressive, but the walls inside were lined with framed newspaper clippings about cases he'd won. And the man himself had the kind of handshake that said he'd rather break your fingers than let go first. Adultery. He said the word like it tasted bad. Pennsylvania's technically a no-fault state, but we can file on fault grounds if you want it on the record. Affects alimony distribution, and it gives us leverage. I want her to feel what I feel. Webb didn't flinch. Then we need evidence. I'm not talking about what you saw. That's your word against hers. I need texts, photos, financial records. The more concrete, the better. I can get the texts. How? I know her phone password. She never changed it. Webb leaned back in his chair. Anything you find on that phone, you bring it to me. Don't send it to anyone else. Don't post it anywhere. Don't even tell your mother. Understand? I understood. That night, Amber went to bed early. Said she had a headache. I waited until I heard the shower running, then went to her purse. Her phone was right on top, like she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. I opened her messages and scrolled to a contact saved as V. What I found made my stomach turn. 18 months. 18 months of messages. Some explicit enough to make me want to throw up. Plans labeled as inventory nights in her calendar. Pet names. She called him Trouble. He called her Sunshine. Inside jokes I didn't understand. References to hotel rooms I'd never known about. There was a message from back in April where Amber wrote, "I can't stop thinking about you. Nathan's working late again. Same old routine. He doesn't even see me anymore." Vinny's response, "He doesn't deserve you. Never did. You're meant for better things, Sunshine." She'd sent him a photo of the dress she bought for our anniversary dinner last spring. The same dinner where she'd seemed distracted the whole time. The same night I thought she was just tired from work. "Can't wait to take that off you," he'd written back. There were logistics too, carefully planned meetups. Tuesday at the Riverside Inn. Room 214. I'll be there at 3. Followed by heart emojis and wink faces like they were teenagers planning prom night instead of two married people betraying their families. And one message from Vinny that broke something in my chest I didn't know could still break. "He's clueless. We've got all the time in the world." The shower was still running. I had time. I scrolled back further, reading message after message. There was a conversation from 6 months ago where Amber complained about me. "He came home grumpy again. All he does is work and sleep. I can't remember the last time he looked at me like you do." "Leave him," Vinny wrote. "What are you waiting for?" "Dylan. It's always Dylan. We'll figure that out. You and me, Sunshine. That's all that matters." She'd been planning to leave me for months, maybe longer. The affair wasn't just physical. She'd been building an exit strategy, an escape plan, like Denise would later tell me. And she'd been using our son as the only thing holding her back. I cloned the messages to a burner app Ray had helped me set up. Every single one. 347 messages spanning 18 months of betrayal. Then I put the phone back and went downstairs to plan. I found the notebook 2 days later. Amber had always kept what she called a tip tally in her purse, a little spiral-bound thing where she tracked her tips from the coffee shop. She guarded it like it contained nuclear codes, but I'd never thought much about it. Now I thought about everything. The entries didn't make sense at first. Dollar amounts and percentages, nothing matching real tip calculations. But then I looked closer. 4:15, 20% April 15th. 8 p.m., 5:22, 17% May 22nd. 5 p.m. She'd been coding her meetings with him. Dates disguised as dollar amounts, times disguised as percentages. 18 months of betrayal, cataloged like inventory. I took pictures of every page. Webb subpoenaed the bank records. What came back was worse than I expected. There was a savings account in Amber's name that I'd never seen before. She'd been making transfers from our joint account for over a year. Small amounts, 50 here, 75 there, nothing that would raise alarms. The total was just under $7,400. "This isn't just adultery," Webb said. "This is financial misconduct. The court takes this seriously." But that wasn't the worst of it. 3 weeks before I caught them, Amber had opened a credit card in my name. My name, my social security number, my everything. The balance was $3,200, most of it spent on gifts. Jewelry, clothes, a weekend trip to a beach resort she'd told me was a work conference. "She committed fraud," Webb said. "We can use this." I sat in his office, staring at the statement, and realized I didn't know the woman I'd married. Maybe I never had. Dylan noticed things. Kids always do. "Why is Mommy sleeping in the guest room?" I knelt down to his level. He had my eyes, brown, serious, and Amber's nose. Looking at him was like looking at a wound that wouldn't heal. "Grown-up stuff, buddy. Not your fault. Never your fault. You understand?" He nodded, but I could see he didn't. Not really. "Can we still get pizza on Fridays?" "Every Friday," I promised. "No matter what." The knock on my door came on a Tuesday. I opened it expecting Ray or maybe some door-to-door salesman. What I got was Denise Fletcher, Amber's older sister. She looked like Amber if you added 10 pounds and 10 years of disappointment. Same blonde hair, same sharp chin. We'd never been close. She'd voted against me at their family Thanksgiving 6 years running. Come to defend her? I asked. I came to apologize. That stopped me cold. What? I knew. Denise's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. About the affair. For 3 months, I knew. She told me she was going to end it. The rage hit me like a wave. You knew and you said nothing? I was wrong. I was stupid, and I was wrong, and I'm here to make it right. I should have slammed the door in her face. Part of me wanted to, but the other part, the part that had learned to think before acting, wanted to hear what she had to say. Talk fast. Denise stepped inside. She had a folder in her hand, stuffed with printed pages. Amber sent me screenshots, bragged about him. She dropped the folder on my coffee table. She called him her escape plan, like you were just a pit stop on the way to someone better. I opened the folder. Text messages, photos, even a selfie of Amber and Vinny in what looked like a hotel bathroom. She was smiling like she'd won the lottery. There's more, Denise said. Vinny's married. I looked up. What? Wife named Brooke, 2 kids. She has no idea. The pieces started clicking into place. Leverage, angles, opportunities. Why are you telling me this? Denise sat down on my couch, suddenly looking exhausted. Because Dylan is my nephew. Because I watched her do this to our father before he died. Running around behind his back, spending his money, making him feel like he was crazy for asking questions. She's become someone I don't recognize, and I can't stand by anymore. You'll testify? If it comes to that. I stared at her for a long moment. I didn't trust her. Not fully, maybe not ever. But she had information I needed. There's something else you should know, Denise said. Amber's been telling our family you're abusive, that you control the money, that you monitor her phone, that you threaten her. She's setting up a narrative for the custody fight. My blood went cold. That's a lie. I know it's a lie, but our mother believes her. Our aunt believes her. By the time this goes to court, she'll have a whole chorus of people ready to swear you're a monster. I sat down across from her. My mind was racing. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was building a case against me. A story where I was the villain and she was the survivor. Well, 2 could play that game. Webb filed for divorce on my behalf before Amber could get her paperwork together. We filed on grounds of adultery, with financial misconduct cited as additional cause. I had the papers served at her workplace. Gary Dawson watched the whole thing. So did 3 customers, 2 other employees, and the UPS guy who happened to be making a delivery. The process server found her behind the counter, handed her the envelope and said, Amber Cole, you've been served. I heard about it from Ray that night. He'd gotten the story from someone who'd been there. Her face went white, Ray said, like she'd seen a ghost. I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't feel anything, but I knew it was necessary. Amber stormed through our front door at 6:42 p.m., papers crumpled in her fist. You served me at work? In front of everyone? I was sitting at the kitchen table eating leftover pizza with Dylan. I'd picked him up from school early, made sure we were settled in before she got home. Dylan, I said calmly, why don't you go play your video game upstairs? Mom and I need to talk. He looked between us, scared and confused, and then ran upstairs like the house was on fire. Amber waited until his door closed, then slammed the papers on the table. Do you have any idea what you've done? I can't show my face in that shop anymore. Everyone knows. You cheated at work. I took another bite of pizza. Seemed fitting. I can't believe you would humiliate me like this. After everything we've been through? After everything we've been through? I set the pizza down. You spent 18 months sleeping with another man. You stole money from our son's college fund. You opened a credit card in my name. You want to talk about humiliation? Let's talk about finding my wife with her tongue down someone else's throat behind a dumpster. She tried a different tactic. Tears, trembling lips, reaching for my hand. Nathan, please. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. We can work through this. I pulled my hand away. Save it for the judge. Vinny lost his job a week later. Turned out his employer had a strict policy about using company vehicles for personal business. An anonymous tip led to an investigation, which led to a review of his GPS logs, which led to some uncomfortable questions about why his delivery truck kept stopping at the same hotel every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. The tip had come from a burner email I'd created specifically for this purpose. I'd included just enough detail to make it worth investigating. Specific dates, specific times, patterns that would show up in their tracking data. I didn't accuse him of anything. I just suggested they might want to take a closer look at their employees' mileage reports. The regional manager called Vinny into the office on a Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, he was cleaning out his locker. I heard the details from Brooke later. Apparently, he tried to blame it on traffic delays and customer emergencies. He had an excuse for every suspicious stop. But the GPS data didn't lie, and neither did the hotel receipts that matched up perfectly with his detours. They fired him without severance. His company phone got shut off that day. His access to the delivery schedule, the same schedule he'd been using to coordinate meetups with my wife, went with it. Amber found out on Saturday. She showed up at my door, mascara running, hands shaking. Did you do this? I was in the middle of making Dylan lunch. Grilled cheese, cut diagonally the way he liked it. Do what? Vinny got fired. Someone reported him. Did you do this? I flipped the sandwich. Why would I do something like that? Nathan, I'm serious. If you're trying to ruin his life, I'm not trying to do anything. I looked at her over my shoulder. But if someone happened to notice that your boyfriend was running personal errands on company time, well, that sounds like his problem, not mine. Her face crumpled. For a second, I thought she might start sobbing right there in my kitchen. But then her expression hardened into something uglier. You're going to regret this. No, I said calmly. I don't think I will. She stormed out. Dylan came downstairs a minute later, asking who was at the door. Just someone looking for the wrong house, I said. Lunch is ready. I heard she cried for 3 days straight after that. Their whole affair infrastructure crumbled overnight. No more easy meetups, no more excuses, no more pretending. I can't say I felt bad about it. The letter I sent to Brooke Drake was calculated. I printed selected screenshots. Nothing explicit, but damning enough. A hotel receipt. A jewelry purchase. A text where Vinny told Amber he couldn't wait to get away from her for good, talking about his own wife like she was an obstacle. I included a typed note. I thought you should know who your husband really is. I drove 2 towns over to mail it. No return address, no signature, just the evidence, speaking for itself. 3 days later, my phone rang from an unknown number. Is this Nathan Cole? Female voice, tired, angry, trying very hard to stay calm. Who's asking? Brooke Drake, I think you sent me a letter. I considered denying it. But what was the point? Yeah, I did. A long pause. I could hear her breathing, ragged, like she'd been crying. How long? At least 18 months, maybe longer. Another pause. Then, I want to meet. We met at a diner 2 towns over, neutral territory, away from anyone who might recognize us. Brooke was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and shadows under her eyes that said she hadn't slept in days. She was already in a booth when I arrived, hands wrapped around a coffee cup she wasn't drinking. "You're Nathan," she said. Not a question. "And you're Brooke." We sat across from each other like two people negotiating a hostage exchange. Tired, wary, bound together by people who'd betrayed us both. She ordered coffee. I ordered the same. Neither of us touched it. "Tell me how you found out," she said. So I did. The delivery, the alley, the smeared lipstick and the arrogant smirk. Her face tightened as I described it, like she was picturing her own version of the same scene. "He told me he was doing overnight deliveries," she said when I finished. "Said the company was expanding and he was picking up extra routes." I believed him because why wouldn't I? He's my husband. We have 2 kids. We were supposed to be building something. Amber told me she was doing inventory, said the shop was short-staffed. The inventory excuse. Brooke laughed bitterly. Same playbook. He probably taught her that one. "How long have you two been married?" 9 years. "You?" 10. We looked at each other across the table. 2 people who'd been played by the same con artists. 2 people who'd spent years building lives that turned out to be built on sand. "I have his email," Brooke said suddenly. "He never changed the password. Dumb as a box of rocks about security." "What's in it?" She pulled out her phone, started scrolling. "Hotel receipts, gift purchases. There's a jewelry receipt from 3 months ago. A necklace. Amber's been wearing it. I've seen the photos." I remembered the necklace. Silver chain, little pendant in the shape of a star. Amber said a coworker gave it to her for her birthday. I'd thought it was odd. None of her coworkers had ever given her jewelry before, but I'd let it go. "I paid for half of that," Brooke said, "with our joint account. He bought your wife jewelry with my money." "How much?" $400. Not exactly a fortune, but it's the principle." She set her phone down. "There's more, a lot more. Weekend trips he told me were work conferences, restaurant bills from places I've never heard of, and emails." She trailed off. "The emails are worse than the texts." "What do you mean?" "I mean they were making plans. Real plans. He told her they'd be together by Christmas, said he was going to leave me and the kids." Something cold and sharp settled in my chest. Not anger. I was past anger. Something more like clarity. "What do you want?" I asked. "I want him to suffer." Her voice was flat, controlled. The voice of someone who'd moved past grief and landed somewhere colder. "I want to take everything he has and leave him with nothing. I want him to wake up every morning in some dump apartment, alone, and think about everything he threw away. I can work with that." She studied me for a long moment. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Anger, maybe. Screaming. That's what I did for the first 3 days. I did my screaming already. Now I'm planning." For the first time, something like a smile crossed her face. "Good. Then we're on the same page." Brooke and I became unlikely allies. We shared evidence, coordinated with our lawyers, and built a case that would destroy both Vinny and Amber's credibility from the inside out. She gave me access to Vinny's emails, which showed a pattern of deception going back years. Not just Amber, but at least 2 other women he'd pursued while married. She also gave me something else. "He's got a record," she said during our second meeting. "Domestic battery. 7 years ago before we met. Previous girlfriend. He pled down to a misdemeanor, but it's there." I stared at her. "He hit someone?" "Put her in the hospital. Broken cheekbone." Brooke's jaw was tight. "He told me it was a misunderstanding, that she exaggerated." I believed him. "Is there documentation?" "Court records. I already pulled them." She slid a folder across the table. "He's not supposed to own firearms. He's not supposed to be alone with our kids overnight. And guess what? My mother-in-law has been watching the kids while I work, but Vinny's been picking them up early, every Tuesday." This changed everything. If Amber had plans to bring Vinny into Dylan's life, And based on her texts, she did. A documented history of violence would blow that out of the water. No judge would allow a convicted abuser near my son. We nail them together, I said. Same time, same case. They tried to build a future on lies. Let's make sure they inherit nothing but rubble. Brooke raised her coffee cup. To scorched earth. I clinked my mug against hers. Scorched earth. Vinny showed up at my house 2 weeks later. I was taking out the trash when his truck pulled up to the curb. The same truck he used to drive for the coffee company. Now just a personal vehicle for a man with no job and no prospects. It had a dent in the side panel that hadn't been there before. Probably couldn't afford to fix it. He got out and stormed across my lawn like he owned the place. His face was red, his fists clenched. He looked like a man who'd been drinking. You and I need to talk. I set down the trash bag and folded my arms. I don't think we do. You got me fired. He jabbed a finger at my chest. You called the company, you sent them some tip, and now I'm out on my rear with no income and a wife who won't look at me. Sounds rough. Don't get smart with me, mailman. I know what you did, and I know you sent that letter to Brooke. Did I? Cut the games, he was shouting now. A light came on in my neighbor's house. You think you're clever? You think you've got this all figured out? I will end you. You hear me? I will make your life a living nightmare. I stayed calm. My doorbell camera was running. Everything he said was being recorded. You're on my property. I'd suggest you leave. Or what? You'll call the cops? He stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell cigarettes and cheap whiskey and the stink of desperation. You think I'm scared of cops? You think I'm scared of you? You're nothing. A mailman. A nobody. Amber was too good for you from day one. If she was so good, why'd she have to sneak around behind both our backs? That landed. His face twisted into something ugly. She loves me. She's always loved me. You were just in the way. Is that what she told you? Let me guess. She said you were different. Said you understood her. Said you were going to run away together and live happily ever after. I laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. She told you whatever you wanted to hear, Vinny. That's what she does. That's who she is. Shut up. And now here you are. No job, no wife, standing on my lawn making threats while my doorbell camera records every word. You want to know who the nobody is? Look in the mirror. For a second, I thought he might swing. Part of me hoped he would. Assault on my property, on camera, would be the cherry on top of this whole disaster. His fist twitched. His breathing got heavier. But he didn't. Some survival instinct kicked in at the last second. He just stood there, breathing hard, fists clenched at his sides. This isn't over, he said. Yeah, I replied. It's not. But you don't know what's coming. He turned and stalked back to his truck. Slammed the door so hard the whole vehicle shook. The engine roared to life and he peeled out so fast his tires left marks on the asphalt. I went inside and saved the video to 3 different cloud accounts. Then I poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey and watched it back, making sure the audio was clear. It was. Every threat. Every admission. Every piece of evidence I'd need if he tried anything else. Ray called 10 minutes later. Neighbor just texted me, said some guy was screaming in your driveway. You okay? I'm fine. Better than fine. What happened? Vinny Drake just handed me his head on a silver platter, and he doesn't even know it yet. Amber's lawyer tried to paint me as controlling and emotionally abusive. It was exactly what Denise had warned me about. Character assassination, built on lies and rehearsed testimonies from her family members who'd never liked me anyway. Webb was ready. He presented counter-evidence. My work reviews, which consistently praised my reliability and professionalism. Dylan's school records, which showed I attended every parent-teacher conference for the past 3 years. Character witnesses from my mail route. Neighbors who'd seen me shovel their driveways in winter, check on elderly residents during heat waves, go out of my way to help. Then Webb called Denise to testify via written statement. I could see Amber's face from across the courtroom. She went pale when she realized her own sister had turned against her. The statement confirmed everything: the affair, the bragging, the coded notebook, all of it. Amber's lawyer tried to object. The judge overruled him. The financial records were next. Webb laid out the fraudulent credit card with surgical precision. The application had been filed online using my social security number. The IP address traced back to Amber's phone. She claimed I must have opened it, that I was setting her up. Webb pulled up the digital evidence, timestamps, location data, a trail of breadcrumbs that led directly to her. The judge's expression shifted from neutral to something colder. I watched Amber realize in real time that her credibility was evaporating. Gary Dawson didn't want to testify. I didn't blame him. The whole thing had made his coffee shop a circus, and he just wanted it to be over. But he'd been subpoenaed. He had no choice. Under oath, he confirmed what I'd seen in the alley. He confirmed that other employees had witnessed inappropriate behavior between Amber and Vinny for months. He confirmed that no one had reported it because it wasn't their business. "Did you ever see Mr. Cole act violently toward his wife?" Webb asked. Gary shook his head. "No, never. The day he found them, he didn't touch anyone. He just walked away." I could feel Amber's narrative crumbling. The abusive husband, the controlling monster, none of it held up under scrutiny. The killing blow came last. Webb introduced Vinny's criminal record into evidence. The domestic battery conviction, the court records, the hospital reports. "Your Honor," Webb said, "Mrs. Cole has indicated in text messages her intention to integrate Mr. Drake into her son's life. We submit that, given Mr. Drake's documented history of violence against intimate partners, this poses a significant risk to the child's safety." Amber's lawyer tried to object. Said it was irrelevant, since Vinny wasn't a party to the divorce. The judge disagreed. "The welfare of the minor child is absolutely relevant." Objection overruled. I watched Amber's face as she processed what was happening. She didn't know. Vinny had never told her about the conviction. She'd been planning a future with a man she didn't really know, just like I'd been married to a woman I didn't really know. The irony wasn't lost on me. Vinny didn't take the exposure well. 2 days after the hearing, he sent me a string of threatening texts. Called me names I won't repeat. Said he knew where I lived. Said he'd make me regret ever crossing him. I forwarded everything to the police. They issued a restraining order within 48 hours. Vinny violated it the next day, drove past my house 3 times in one afternoon, caught on my neighbor's security camera. His parole officer got the report that evening. By morning, Vinny was in handcuffs. The final hearing was on a Tuesday. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, nothing like the grand marble chambers you see on television. Just a room with fluorescent lights, uncomfortable wooden benches, and a judge who looked like she'd heard every sad story in the world and stopped being surprised by any of them. I testified calmly, factually, without raising my voice. Webb had coached me well. Don't show anger, don't show satisfaction, just present the evidence and let it speak. The texts, the notebook codes, the financial fraud, the credit card in my name, the hotel receipts, the jewelry purchased with Brooke's money. 18 months of deception laid out in neat stacks of paper. "Mr. Cole," Webb said, "can you describe for the court what you discovered on the day of October 17th? I told them. The delivery, the alley, the kiss, the smirk. I kept my voice steady, even when I described the look in Amber's eyes. Not guilt, not remorse, just annoyance at being interrupted. Amber sat at the other table with her lawyer, a rumpled man in a cheap suit who kept shuffling papers like he was hoping a better argument would magically appear. She wouldn't look at me, kept her eyes on the table, dabbing at tears that may or may not have been real. When it was her turn, she took the stand and tried to cry her way through it. She talked about loneliness, about feeling neglected, about how Vinny had manipulated her into the affair. "He made me feel seen," she said, her voice trembling. "Nathan was always working, always tired. I felt like a ghost in my own house. And then Vincent came along and he listened to me. He paid attention to me. I made terrible choices, I know that. But I was so lost." The judge's expression didn't change. I wondered how many times she'd heard that exact speech, almost word for word. Webb's cross-examination was brutal. "Mrs. Cole, you testified that you felt neglected by your husband. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And yet, according to these bank records, Mr. Cole worked an average of 52 hours per week, including overtime, while you worked 30 hours. Is that accurate?" I suppose, but..." "And the extra income Mr. Cole earned went into a joint savings account for your son's college fund, correct?" "Yes." "The same fund you withdrew over $7,000 from to fund hotel rooms with Mr. Drake?" Amber's lawyer objected. The judge overruled him. "I made mistakes," Amber said. "I know I made mistakes." "Let's talk about those mistakes. You opened a credit card in your husband's name without his knowledge or consent. Is that correct?" I was going to pay it back." "That wasn't my question. Did you open a credit card using your husband's name and social security number?" Silence. Then, very quietly, "Yes." "And you used that card to purchase gifts for Mr. Drake, is that correct?" "Some of it, yes." "Including a weekend trip to Atlantic City that you told your husband was a work conference?" "It was a mistake. I was going to tell him..." "Mrs. Cole." Webb stepped closer. "You testified that your husband was neglectful. But according to Dylan's school records, Mr. Cole attended every single parent-teacher conference for the past 3 years. Did you attend those conferences?" She hesitated. "Some of them." Dylan's soccer coach submitted a statement saying Mr. Cole never missed a game last season. "Were you at those games, Mrs. Cole?" "I had to work some Saturdays." "Your husband also had to work. According to his supervisor, he specifically requested Saturday morning routes so he could make afternoon games. Did you make any similar arrangements?" She didn't answer. "You opened a credit card in your husband's name without his knowledge or consent. Is that a mistake, Mrs. Cole, or is that fraud?" She didn't have an answer. The courtroom was silent except for the scratch of the court reporter's keyboard. Webb turned to the judge. "No further questions." The judge's ruling came down 2 weeks later. Divorce granted on grounds of adultery. Primary custody of Dylan awarded to me. Amber got supervised visitation. Her association with a convicted domestic abuser was cited as a concern. The house stayed with me. I'd paid the mortgage with my income while she'd been siphoning money into secret accounts. Alimony. None. Her financial misconduct and adultery disqualified her. She was ordered to repay the fraudulent credit card balance, $3,200 plus interest. I walked out of the courthouse with Dylan's hand in mine. He didn't understand what had just happened. Not really. He just knew Dad had won something, and that meant things would be okay. Amber was sitting on a bench outside, alone. Her lawyer had already left. Her family hadn't come. "Nathan." Her voice cracked. "Nathan, please." I kept walking. "Dylan, what do you want for dinner?" "Pizza." "Pizza it is." We walked to the car without looking back. Brooke's divorce finalized the same week. She got the house, the car, and primary custody of both kids. Vinny, out on bail, awaiting trial for violating his restraining order, had nothing. No job, no home, no family. I ran into Brooke at the grocery store a month later. She looked tired but lighter, like she'd set down a weight she'd been carrying for years. "I heard he's living in his truck," she said. "Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy." She almost smiled. "Thanks, for the letter, for everything." We helped each other. She nodded, grabbed a cart, and headed toward the produce section. I never saw her again. The first few months were hard. Dylan had nightmares. He'd wake up screaming about doors slamming and people yelling, things he must have absorbed even when we thought we were keeping our voices down. I'd find him in my doorway at 2 a.m., pajamas wrinkled, eyes wet. "Can I sleep with you?" "Yeah, buddy, come on." He'd curl up next to me in the bed that used to be ours, and I'd stare at the ceiling, listening to his breathing slow until he finally fell asleep. Some nights I'd stay awake until sunrise, thinking about all the ways this could have gone differently. All the ways I could have seen it coming. He asked about his mom constantly. Why couldn't she come to his soccer games anymore? Why did she live in a different house now? Was she sad? Did she miss him? "She's dealing with some things," I told him. "Adult things. But she still loves you." I didn't know if that last part was true, but he was 8, and he needed to believe it. The supervised visits were awkward. I'd drop Dylan off at the designated center, a bland building with plastic chairs and board games with missing pieces, and wait in the parking lot for 2 hours while someone watched my wife interact with our son like she was a potential threat. She was required to attend parenting classes. Anger management. The judge had been thorough. Sometimes Dylan came out of those visits quiet and thoughtful. Other times he was chatty, full of stories about what mom had said or what game they'd played. I never pressed for details. We established routines. Pancakes on Saturday mornings, Dylan's favorite, with chocolate chips and too much syrup. Homework before screens, no exceptions. Pizza on Fridays, which became our sacred tradition. Bedtime stories that went on too long because neither of us wanted them to end. I learned to braid hair for school picture day. Badly, but Dylan didn't care. I learned which lunch items would get eaten versus traded versus thrown away. I learned that 8-year-olds have stronger opinions about socks than most adults have about politics. Ray came over most weekends, brought beer, helped me with projects around the house, reminded me that I wasn't alone. One Saturday, we were fixing the gutter that had been leaking for 2 years, a project I'd been meaning to get to forever, when Dylan came running out with his soccer ball. "Dad, watch this." He attempted some kind of complicated kick that sent the ball sailing over the fence into the neighbor's yard. Ray laughed so hard he nearly fell off the ladder. "You're doing good," Ray said that night, watching Dylan kick the same ball around the backyard, successfully this time. "Kid's gonna be all right." "I hope so." "No, I mean it. He's got you. That's what matters. The rest of it, the mess, the drama, all the garbage with your ex, that'll fade. What stays is this." He gestured at Dylan, who was now attempting some kind of victory dance after scoring against an imaginary opponent. "That kid knows his dad's in his corner. That's everything." Carly Jennings moved in next door about 6 weeks after the divorce finalized. I was out mowing the lawn when the moving truck pulled up. Single mom, 1 kid, a little girl named Lily, who was a year younger than Dylan and twice as loud. They hit it off immediately, chasing each other around the yard while Carly and I stood on opposite sides of the fence making awkward small talk. She was maybe 32, with auburn hair she kept in a messy ponytail and a smile that seemed like it had survived some hard years of its own. She wore paint-stained jeans and an old college sweatshirt, and she looked at me without any of the pity I'd been getting from everyone else. "Heard you had a rough year," she said. That's one way to put it. "My ex left when Lily was 2. Said he wasn't ready to be a father." She shrugged. "Some people aren't. Took me a while to figure out that wasn't my fault." I nodded. We watched the kids play. Lily had Dylan in a headlock, and he was laughing too hard to escape. "I'd offer to help you unload, but..." I gestured at the mower. "I've got it." Moving guys did the heavy lifting anyway. I'm just here to point at things and pretend I know where I want them. She smiled. But thanks for the offer. Nathan, right? Yeah. I'm Carly. Nice to meet you, neighbor. She brought over a casserole a few days later. Actual homemade food, not the frozen stuff I'd been surviving on. Chicken something, with vegetables Dylan would definitely push to the side of his plate, but it smelled incredible. You look like you could use a real meal. That obvious? You've got hot dog juice on your shirt? I looked down. She was right. Red stain, right below the collar. I'd heated up 3 of them for Dylan's lunch and hadn't even noticed. Fair point. I'm not judging. Single parenting is survival mode. I lived off cereal and coffee for Lily's entire toddler phase. She handed me the dish. This reheats well, by the way. Just cover it with foil. I wasn't ready for anything. Not dating, not romance, not even friendship with complicated undertones. The divorce papers were barely dry. But Carly didn't push. She just kept showing up. A wave from the driveway, an invitation to a neighborhood barbecue, a text checking in when Dylan was sick. It was nice, simple, exactly what I needed. One afternoon, Lily came over to play, and Carly followed to supervise. We ended up on my back porch with glasses of iced tea, watching the kids take turns on Dylan's tire swing. Can I ask you something personal? She said. Depends on how personal. Do you ever stop being angry? I thought about it. Really thought. I don't know. Some days it's like a low hum in the background. Always there, but manageable. Other days it flares up and I want to punch a wall. I paused. But it's getting better. Slowly. She nodded. Took me about 2 years before I could hear my ex's name without wanting to throw something. Now I mostly just feel sorry for him. He's missing everything. She gestured at Lily, who was shrieking with laughter as Dylan pushed her higher. She's amazing, and he'll never know. His loss? Exactly. His loss? We sat there in comfortable silence, watching our kids play, 2 people who'd been broken and were slowly figuring out how to put themselves back together. Denise came by once, about 3 months after everything settled. She's pregnant, she said. Vinny's kid. I stared at her. What? She's keeping it. I don't know why. Maybe she thinks it'll make things right. Maybe she's just lost. I waited for the anger to come, the satisfaction, the sense of justice. Nothing. I felt absolutely nothing. That's not my problem anymore. Denise nodded. I know. I just thought you should hear it from me. How's she doing, generally? Studio apartment, reduced hours. She tried to start one of those online fundraiser things, said you were abusive. It got taken down for violating their terms. Her reputation? Gone. Everyone knows what she did. I walked Denise to the door. We didn't hug. We probably never would. Thanks for what you did, I said. For testifying. For telling me the truth when you didn't have to. I owed you that much. She paused on the porch. Take care of my nephew. I will. A letter came from Amber 6 weeks later. Handwritten, which surprised me. I didn't know she still remembered how to write by hand. Nathan. I know you probably won't read this. I don't blame you. I just needed to say I'm sorry. Not for the divorce. I know I deserve that. For making you think you weren't enough. You were always enough. I was the one who wasn't. I hope Dylan knows how lucky he is to have you. Amber. I read it once. Then I dropped it in the recycling bin. No response. No closure for her. Some doors don't get to be reopened just because you're sorry. Dylan asked about her one night, unprompted, while we were eating dinner. Dad? Did Mom ever love us? I set down my fork. Took my time answering. She loved us the best way she knew how. But sometimes people get lost, buddy. They make choices that hurt the people who are trying to find them. He thought about this. You didn't get lost. No, I didn't. How come? I reached across the table and ruffled his hair. Because you're my compass. Always have been. The neighborhood barbecue was Ray's idea. You need to get out, he said. Eat a hot dog. Talk to people who aren't me or an 8-year-old. I talk to plenty of people. The guy at the gas station doesn't count. So I went. Dylan ran off with Lily the second we arrived. I ended up standing by the grill with Carly, both of us holding paper plates and watching the chaos. He's a good kid, she said. He's the best thing I ever did. She looked at me sideways. You're not so bad yourself, you know. I've got hot dog juice on my shirt again, don't I? She laughed. Actually laughed. Loud and real. The kind of laugh you can't fake. No, but you've got mustard on your chin. I wiped it off. She smiled at me, and for the first time in months, I felt something other than tired. I went back to work 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized. Same route, same truck, same rhythm. I passed grounds and grinds on my second day back. Gary was outside sweeping the sidewalk. He looked up when my truck went by. I nodded. He nodded back. Neither of us said anything. There wasn't anything to say. Mrs. Bennett, 3 houses down from the coffee shop, was the first person to mention it. Heard you've been through some trouble, she said, handing me a plate of cookies through her screen door. You're a good man, Nathan. Don't let anyone tell you different. Thank you, ma'am. My Harold stepped out on me once, 30 years ago now. You know what I did? What? I burned his favorite chair. Then I took him back. She winked. Sometimes you burn the chair. Sometimes you burn the whole house down. Either way, you keep moving. I wasn't entirely sure what she meant, but the cookies were good. The morning I knew things were going to be okay was a Thursday. Nothing special, no big revelation. I was sitting on the porch with my coffee, watching the sun come up over the rooftops. Dylan was still asleep, would be for another hour at least. The house was quiet. Carly's light came on next door. She appeared in her window, saw me, and waved. I waved back. That was it. A wave. Nothing more. But for the first time since I caught Amber in that alley, I felt something like peace. Not happiness. That was still far off. Not forgiveness. I wasn't sure I'd ever get there. Just peace. The sense that the worst was over and whatever came next, I could handle it. Dylan came downstairs at 7:15, still in his pajamas, hair sticking up in 6 different directions. Dad, can we have pancakes? It's not Saturday. I know, but I want pancakes. I looked at him. This kid who'd been through more in the past 6 months than any 8-year-old should have to handle. Who still smiled. Who still trusted me. Who still believed that pancakes could fix anything. You know what? Yeah, let's have pancakes. He pumped his fist. Yes. I got up, went inside, and started pulling ingredients out of the cabinet. Dylan climbed onto his stool by the counter, ready to help, in the way that actually makes everything take twice as long. Outside, the sun was fully up now. Carly's car was pulling out of her driveway, probably dropping Lily at school. Ray would be by later to watch the game. Tomorrow, I'd be back on my route, delivering letters and packages to people living their own complicated lives. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough.